Hi everyone, my name is Johanna and I'm on the success team here at RAM. Today we'll focus on connecting QuickBooks Desktop to RAM. So for today's agenda, we'll be covering the following items. We'll walk through how to import your chart of accounts as well as any additional lists over to RAM, including how to code some transactions. We'll also import those coded transactions over to QuickBooks Desktop and explore different export types. So let's go on ahead and get started. What I'm going to do is share my screen showing my QuickBooks Desktop account. So if you want to log into your own QuickBooks account, please do so now while I go ahead and pull this up on my end. All right, so everyone should be able to see my screen now. Before we import your chart of accounts, as well as any additional lists that you're using, we do require you to create a liability account to post credits to when accounting for RAM credit card transactions across your entire business. So we'll need this liability account to be in your chart of accounts, as well as a bank and accounts payable account. So let's go ahead and create this together. So on QuickBooks Desktop, you'll first want to make sure you're signed into single user mode. Best way to do that is to click on File, and if it says switch to single user mode, you'll have to click on that. If it says switch to multi-user mode, that means you're already in single user mode, so you're good to go. All right. Next, what you'll do is open your chart of accounts in order to create that liability account. Best way to create that is there'll be an account button with a drop down on the bottom left. Go ahead and click on that and click New. And then this account type will be a credit card liability account. So let's click Continue after you select credit card. All right. Perfect. Now, as a best practice, we recommend naming this liability account RAM card so you can easily differentiate, between other liability accounts you may have, and at least all RAM credit card transactions will get posted there. So if you'd like to add a description, you can say that for RAM credit card transactions. And then there will be no card number to fill out here. And from here, you could go ahead and click Save and Close. So now this RAM card liability account, which is credit card type, will show up in your chart of accounts. All right. So now that we went ahead and created this liability account for your RAM credit card transactions, we'll go ahead and import your chart of accounts as well as any additional lists that you're using over to RAM now. So the best way to do that is to go back to File on the top left, and then go to Utilities, Export, List to IIF Files. This will pull up all the lists that is currently available in QuickBooks Desktop. And as a quick note, we are only able to import your chart accounts, your customer list, your vendor list, and your class list. So those 4 lists are the only ones we can pull with this connection process. If you are using any other lists, such as job type or items list, you will need to use our universal CSV connection process, where you'll still have the option to export your coded transactions as an IIF file to QuickBooks. So once we get to that step, I'll show you guys how to do that. But for now, you want to make sure, if you are using the QuickBooks Desktop connection, that your chart of accounts, your customer list, your vendor list, and your class list is selected if you are using all 4. All right. So once you select those, you can go ahead and click on OK, and then you'll want to save this in an easily accessible area. So I'm just going to name this RAM and save this on my desktop so I can easily pull this in just a bit. So once you've done that, you'll get a little box from QuickBooks Desktop letting you know that your data has been exported successfully, so you can press OK there. All right. So now we are ready to import all this information over to RAM. So I'll go ahead and switch my screen over to the Ramp platform. If you guys want to log into your Ramp account, I recommend doing so you could follow along as well. All right. So in order to connect to QuickBooks Desktop, the first thing that you'll have to do is go on over to the accounting page. So click on that, and your window should look like this if you have not started the connection process as of yet. But now that we're on the same page, let's go on ahead and click on Get Started. So for our users today that will be using just the chart of accounts, vendor list, customer list, and the class list, you will be using QuickBooks Desktop to connect, which is what we'll walk through together today. Any of our users that are using any additional lists besides those 4, like items or job, then you'll need to use our universal CSV connection process, and that is down here. What I recommend doing is where it says search for your provider, type in QBD, and then go ahead and click on using use QBD as my accounting provider. All right. So you could turn this into all caps or lowercase, up to you. Once you click on that, it'll be the same like export process with your IIF files, so you'll be fine. All right, just gives you more of an ability to use those extra lists that we don't support with the QuickBooks Desktop connection process. So let's go ahead and now click on QuickBooks Desktop, and this will bring you to one required step. This one required step is asking for you to upload your chart of accounts and all the other lists that you are using. So you can go ahead and click on that. The first step will be to create a liability account, which you have already done so you can check this off. And now this will expose where you can upload the IIF file with all the lists. So once you click on that, you could easily click on the IIF file we just saved, click open, and this will pull all 4 lists, all right? And if it looks short like this, it's because if you click show all, it'll show the rest of it like so. So now we could go ahead and click save and continue because all looks well. And we'll be prompted to select our credit card account, which will be the Ramp card account. And now we'll click save and continue. All right. And now you could click anywhere to the left. And if there's a green checkbox or check mark near this one required step, that means you're good to go. All of your lists are fully in Ramp right now. So you can click Start Coding Expenses. Perfect. So if you have some transactions going, your page will look similar to mine. However, if you do not have any transactions going, then you'll see everything up from search and filter. All right. So in order to complete your accounting setup, we have a few remaining steps. So what you'll want to do is configure to export. On your end, this button here might say configure to export in yellow, but if it doesn't, best way to access that is through the settings here on the top right. If you click into that and then go to sync settings, you'll be able to select all of your default accounts here. All right. So as far as default accounts go, we have it broken up by card spend, which will be on credit cards, reimbursements, which is any out-of-pocket expenses that your employees incurred on behalf of the company and are looking to get paid back. And then lastly, we have bill pay, which is to pay your invoices. So for credit card spend, first off, your accounting credit card liability account, you'll want to click on this drop down, and this will be the Ramp card. Next, if you scroll below, there's a section here that says statement payments. This is a bank account where all of your Ramp transactions will get paid through, aka your monthly statement payment. So over here, you have your main bank account selected. And if you click on the drop down, you'll see any other bank accounts that you also have already added and verified. If you have not verified them yet, or if you have not added any additional bank accounts to Ramp, then you will not see it in this dropdown. Only bank accounts that have been added and verified will show here. Now you'll want to click on the Accounting Cash Account dropdown in order to select how this bank account is listed in your chart of accounts. So in my case, this checking account ending in 1873 is listed as my operating account in my chart of accounts. So I'll go ahead and click on that. The next step is to select a cashback account, essentially. So with Ramp's cashback, you get 1.5% for every transaction you make, and that cashback will look like additional income for your business. So you'll want to tuck that away into any type of income account or revenue account. So if you click on this drop down, you'll have access to all the revenue, expense, income accounts here. And in my case, I want to put this under other income. I've seen a lot of other businesses put this under miscellaneous income, other income, bank service and rewards, bank fees and rewards. So you can get very creative as to where you put it. But make sure you still choose at least one account here. All right, and then the last step for credit card accounts and selecting your default account is your default accounting date. So you have the power to choose how your transactions are going to go over. So if you wanted to show the transaction date, which is the day the card was swiped, then that could be your clearing time, or your default account date, or if you want to choose the clearing date, which is essentially the date the transaction clears itself. So this is when it would post in the statement. So you could select that as well. All right. Also, everything that we are selecting in these 3 sections are not set in stone. So you could always come back and make any changes anytime to these settings at any point. So in order to move on to this reimbursement section, we'll want to click Save Changes and then click on Reimbursements. So if you are planning on using Ramp reimbursements to reimburse your employees on behalf of company spend, you could click on this drop down and select your accounts payable account, because that is where it'll export to. And over here, if you're planning to use it and you want to use the same bank account, you could leave it as is, or you could change the bank account. And for our users today that will not be using Ramp reimbursements, you can always disable it by clicking here. All right. And don't worry, if you disable it now, you could always come back and enable it later. All right. Now we'll select our cash account, which is our operating account. It'll look different on your end based on how you have your cash account saved as an asset account in your chart of accounts. So now we can click Save Changes. And now let's go to Bill Pay. So again, Bill Pay is to pay your vendors for any invoices. So over here, you'll want to select your accounts payable account again, because this is where all of your bills will go to. And then you'll want to select the bank account that you pay your bills out of, as well as a cash account corresponding with that bank account. And then you just click Save Changes. Perfect. So now we have completed all of your default accounts. So all of these, whether it's credit cards or reimbursements or paying invoices, they'll all go to the right spot when you export them to QuickBooks Desktop. All right. Also, you may have noticed that there's some other extra fields here in this Accounting Settings tab. So let's go ahead and walk through these as well. This accounting fields section here is best for if you want to ever update your chart of accounts or any other files that or lists that you are using. If you want to update it via IIF file, you can make your changes in QuickBooks Desktop, pull all 4 files again, Even if you just update one file or one list and not all the lists, you'll still want to pull all 4, or else it'll just pull that one updated list. But even easier, and what I would personally recommend, is to update your lists via CSV within RAMP. So what I mean by that is, let's say you want to update your chart of accounts, right? You have another field you want to add. You could simply click on this little scratchpad edit sign, and it gives you a few options here. So the first one here where it says update options via CSV, you'll want to click on upload options. And the first step is to download a list of your current options, which will be your current chart of accounts that you pulled over from QuickBooks. Now, once you pull that over, you can add your new account or even delete the account that you want to get rid of, and then save it and upload it back into RAMP over here, and it'll pull the new update. And that's all you have to do. So you don't have to pull IIF lists if you don't want to. You could always use the CSV portion. Now, if you go back, there are a few other options. So let's explore what those do. So for which option should be visible or renamed, this just simply lets you hide accounts from the entire company for coding purposes. So only the owner role, the admin role, and the bookkeeper roles can see these hidden accounts. For step 3 or option 3, who should see what? This is a great way where RAMP allows you to create rules to dynamically change the fields options, which are available to your employees using conditional filtering. So if you are having your employees code their own transactions, this is a super great feature to use. It definitely limits any user error, and it is also a part of our RAM Plus plan. All right. So if we click on Create Workflow, we can see a quick example. So we can say if the RAMP department is, let's do engineering, then I want them to see these specific GL codes. So chart account accounts. So let's do dues and subscriptions, meals, and perhaps travel. All right, now we click Save and Close. So now I just created a condition where if my employee is a part of the engineering department and they make a transaction and I enabled employee coding, that means that they made the transaction. Now they have to code their own transaction, and these are the only codes that will be available for them to select from. So this will limit user error, limit you having to do some extra work, save you time here, because you're limiting what options they have available to select from. So you could do this for as many departments as you have. You could do this for any condition. So I highly recommend you explore this feature. As I mentioned, super great for if you're having users code their own transactions. So we'll go ahead and click Save Workflow, and you'll see it apply there. All right, so you'll see it down here. Perfect. So we have now successfully completed your entire accounting setup, so we can walk through how to code your transactions. So you could click anywhere to the left or X out over here. All right. So when you are looking at this accounting tab, you'll notice that all transactions that don't have a category filled out is grayed out, and in order to mark the transaction as ready to export it over, you will need to fill out this category field. As you notice, we cannot click ready until this category field is filled out. If you also take this scroll bar to the bottom and pull it towards the right here, you'll notice that we have a section for receipts, memos, your accounting vendor, your accounting class, and your customer job list. All right. So let's go ahead and code a transaction. Let's find one that we can set a rule with so we can explore what that looks like. All right, let's do this United Airlines one since there's a few of them here. Okay, so I know I just said rules, so that's actually one of the best ways that Ramp allows you to close your books faster, which is just by automating your accounting, to be honest. So we do that by offering the ability to set accounting rules so that you can code transactions in bulk, and it'll save you so much time. So highly, highly recommend that you guys go through and create these rules. It's a effort in the beginning, but once you set it up in the beginning, you're good to go for the rest of the time you're using RAM, and you could always edit the rules and redo the rules later. All right. So let's take a look at all the rules that we have available. So if I click on this drop down here, and I want to code this to travel, all right, travel expense here. If I click on this lightning bolt, it'll show us all the rules that we have available. Then let's click on show more options to show the entire list of rules that we can create. So the first rule here is a merchant rule. This is saying that anytime United Airlines comes in as a transaction, it'll always get coded to travel expense down here, all right? And you can select what it would get coded to. If we were to select a category rule, this is based off of Visa's MCC codes, and it's essentially how a business registers themselves with Visa. So United Airlines told Visa, hey, our category is airlines. That is what we identify as. So that is a category that we pull as we're on the Visa network. So if we were to select this category rule for airlines, this is saying that any airlines that falls under this category, whether it be United, Delta, Alaskan, American Airlines, whichever it may be, they would all get categorized to travel expense every time they come in as a transaction. So it's a bit more broad. Now we have department rules and location rules, which are a bit more granular. So this will be based off of the user. If the user is a part of the sales department, it'll always get coded here. If the user is located in London, it'll always get coded to travel expense. So be careful when setting these, because of course, transactions can differ by the user for need-wise, all right? Lastly, we have the card rule. This is our strongest rule, and it overrides all the rules above it. So the card rule is saying that any time a transaction occurs on this team trip card that we have listed, it will always get coded to travel expense. All right. This card rule is honestly great for something like if you have like a card for LinkedIn, let's say, because we recommend creating vendor-specific cards to mitigate fraud detection or anything like that. So if you have that LinkedIn card, it'll always get coded to something like dues and subscriptions. You can always set a card rule because you know that only LinkedIn transactions will take place on that card and no other transaction at all. So it makes sense to have a rule for it to get coded to dues and subscriptions. But if you know that your card will have other transactions rather than travel expense, then I would not recommend creating this rule for the card rule. All right, so for today's example, we'll go ahead and create an airlines rule. So I'll go ahead and click create rule, and you'll slowly start seeing all of these transactions that fall under airlines being coded. All right, let's see if we have any more. Looks like those United ones were our only ones for today, but That's great, because as you can see, all of them have been automatically coded. I did not have to do it manually one by one. Right? And you can go over to the right and start filling out the other fields. Also, as you can see, I am able to mark it ready for export now that I filled out the chart of accounts. So the vendor has already been detected based off of RAM's SMART rules. So we already matched it to an existing vendor within your vendor list. If the vendor does not exist within your vendor list, then we will not be able to match it here. And then over here, you can select your class. So let's go ahead and select those. And then you could go ahead and select your customer job if it is relatable as well. All right. Also, if you ever have a transaction that you want to split across different fields, you simply just have to click on these three dots and then click Split Transaction. This will bring you to this page, which will allow you to split your transactions as many times as you need. You can only do one transaction at a time to split it. You can't do this in a bulk motion. But you could split the category, the class, and any other fields you have here. All right. You can also change the amount allocation. So you can make this, like, let's say, take out that 11 cents, change it to that, and we'll always try to get the amount to 100 by adjusting the other split. All right. So 100%. And then we can leave that. There we go. We could discard that for now, but that is how you split transactions. All right, so now that we've gone over how to code your transactions, let's go ahead and walk through how to export them to QuickBooks Desktop. Now, the goal is for this entire accounting tab that you see here to be blank, which means that all transactions have been coded and exported to QuickBooks Desktop. So once you export a transaction, it will disappear from this accounting page, and you don't want any of these transactions uncoded lingering here at the end of your month-end close. So as they will disappear from this tab, that's okay, because if you ever need to refer back to them historically, you could always find them in this expenses tab later. All right. So in order to mark a single transaction as ready, so one at a time, you could use just this checkbox. So if you click ready, it'll move over to ready to export. And this export all button will turn yellow, showing you how many transactions you are ready to export. All right, so you can always undo it here. You could always click into the transaction here to make any edits. But if all looks well, you could go ahead and click on export all, and then you'll see different options here. You'll see export IIF file and export as CSV and journal entries. So for this one, let's go ahead and export it as an IIF. And now you'll see it has disappeared from this page, and it has disappeared from my needs review page as well. But we could always find it here in expenses. And now that we have made our first export, if you click on these three dots here to the left of settings, there's an export history button now. So if we click on that, this will show us all of the export history. So who made the export and when. And then if you click into it, you could always download the transaction again here. All right. So now let's take a look at the other two export types. So let's check this one. And this is a way to do it in bulk. You can use these check boxes here. If you select all of this, it'll select all 50. And if you want to do all of the transactions that you have listed, not just the first page of 50, you could do entire view if you've already coded all of them. All right. So in this case, I just have this one. And as you can see, you can bulk edit a lot of these transactions. You just can't split it if it's multiple. So here, see, you can't split. And it gives you a little message too. All right, so now let's export this one transaction by marking it as ready, clicking on export all, and this time we're going to do CSV file so you can see what that looks like. And let's pull this last united one as a journal entry so you can see what that looks like as well. Okay, so I'm going to pull them up, but the biggest difference is that your IIF file is the most easiest, and I would highly recommend that one to pull into QuickBooks Desktop because that's a QuickBooks Desktop specific file. If you are going to use either the QBD or journal entries export type, it is a CSV or Excel file, and that's a little bit more manual to enter into QuickBooks, as we'll see in a little bit. But you are still welcome to use it. And the biggest difference between the QBD file and the journal entries file is that the journal entries will show you the credit and debit, and the QBD will show you just the credit. All right, so let me actually pull those up so you can see that. All right, we have both pulled up here. So let's look at them side to side. All right, and let's zoom in a bit so you don't have to inch forward to your screen. I know it's a little tiny. All right, there we go. So you'll notice that the one on the right has 2 lines and the one on the left has 1 line, even though we exported 1 transaction each. And again, that is because one will show you the credit only and one will show you the credit and the debit. So this over here to the right is our journal entries export because it has 2 lines. So if we go over to column Y and Z, you'll see the debit and the credit for that one transaction. You'll see how it's been coded according to the chart of accounts. You'll see a bunch of additional fields here as well. So definitely more, and we could expand these to get the full time and everything here. So definitely more robust compared to the QBD one, which will show you just the credits, and it's a bit more minimal. Right? So again, biggest difference, QBD export will show you just the credit. Journal entries will show you credit and debit. But again, I recommend going with IIF if you can. All right. So now let's go ahead and explore how to pull these files into QuickBooks Desktop. So let's import these over now. So let's go back to QuickBooks. And we'll go to File on the top left, click on Utilities, Import IIF Files, and then it'll prompt you to close all of your windows. You can press OK, make sure everything's good to go there. And then you'll click on Import IIF. It'll show you the download that you just made. Click Open. And there you go. So the list will be the vendor, transaction will be the transaction itself. You can click Done. And the best way to see that transaction is it's going to your vendor center. So you could go to vendors, vendor center. Let's expand this. Under credit card and activities, if you have multiple, you could filter for Ramp card if you'd like. And then this is a transaction that we just imported in, so we could double click into it and you'll be able to see further details. So you'll be able to see what the merchant was. If you filled out a class, it would be here, the date, the reference number, the amount, and the memo will be populated by the name of the cardholder, their department, their location, their card name, and if they included a memo, this would show up here as well. So over here, flight to Denver, that was their memo, so you can see that here. All right, and there we go. So that's all you have to do to import your IIF, and that's it. So no categorization step is required on the QuickBooks side, as it's already been done in the accounting tab within Ramp. So no separate of importation of vendors either. All right. Now, if you want to import the Excel files or the CSV files, that will be by clicking on File and then Utilities, Import Excel files. This will prompt you to add or edit multiple list entries. You can press OK. And it will open this page where you will have to manually enter everything in. So like I said, try to stick to IIF if you can. All right. So now that we've reviewed how to import your transactions, your coded transactions into QuickBooks Desktop, let's also explore how to enable employee coding and downloading receipts, because as you saw, receipts did not pull over automatically. So let's go back to Ramp here. All right, so our CSV exports, as you notice, only provide the link to the receipts, which will bring you back to Ramp. So should you want to export receipts only for your company's records, you can do so within our Expenses tab. So if you click on Expenses here and you stay within Transactions, what I would recommend doing is setting a transaction date filter before you make your exports, or else this tab here, as I mentioned, has a running history of all the transactions you ever made in Ramp. So you'll want to make sure that when you do export your receipts, that you do it for a specific date, or else it will pull everything all over again every single time. So what I recommend doing is clicking on transaction date and clicking on previous statement, because you know those transactions have already been coded and imported to QuickBooks. So now you can pull the receipts for those. So once you select previous statement, then you could go ahead and click on download transactions to the right of it and click on download.zip receipts. What this does is it emails you a zip file where all the receipts will be separated into folders by cardholder. All right. Now for employee coding. So in order to have your employees code their transactions, we're going to go ahead and click into settings on the bottom left and then expense policy here. From here, we'll click into transaction requirements, and you can create as many policies as you like, but I'm going to edit the default one and scroll down. So now that we've connected accounting, this policy looks a little different because now you have these additional fields to enable. And again, this is for enabling employee coding, meaning you want them to code their own transactions to the correct chart of accounts account or to the correct GL code. All right. So what you'll do here is enable, whichever ones you want. Accounting category is chart of accounts. You could click required, make it required for all transactions, and you can do so with the following ones as well. And then click Save Changes, and it'll ask you if you want to notify your users of this change. It'll send them an email. You can let them know, or you can let it be a little surprise. All right. So that is how you enable employee coding. So this does wrap up our session for today.